Hello folks, I hope that you're having a great day today. Keep yourself safe in our modern COVID world today. Today I'll take another look at another story in this Clark Ashton Smith collection I've been taking a look at for you and doing some deep diving into. And today we're going to take a look at the Supernumerary Corpse. And we'll talk a little bit what that actually means and what's going on and as a part of this review. But this is a part of this collection that I've been taking a look at for you. I just read it a couple of days ago. It's only 6 pages long in this collection. It won't take you that long to read. And I really did enjoy it. I do think it's a little trite in times. I only give it a 7 out of 10, whereas normally Clark Ashton Smith gets 8 to 9 out of 10s. So I do think it's a little trite in a couple of places. But the central idea and conceit of this story is very, very well done. According to some of the research I did, he actually came up with the idea for this story in the late 20s. But he didn't actually write it until about 3 or 4 years later. He had this in some sort of a story queue where he had ideas for future stories, and he would go to that idea well when he was feeling a little shy of writing, or he was looking for inspiration, or had some writer's block. And so he would go to that sort of that queue of story ideas, and when he found that, he pulled out of the well this story, the Supernumerary Corpse, which we'll take a look for you. Now, I looked up the word, what the title means, and that word means finding a number larger than what was expected. So he's telling you what the central key of this story is in the title of the story. The extra corpse, the too many corpses. And so he's putting the title in there for you. Now, when he was young, Clark Ashton Smith read a dictionary, and he has an eidetic memory. So he remembered all those words, and he would regularly use his words in his stories like Ignescent that I'd never read before. And you can either figure them out from context clues, or you can look them up yourself, or you just ignore them. So I actually looked this up to see what it actually meant after I read this story, because I'd never heard of this word before. Not an uncommon experience for me as a reader of Clark Ashton Smith. Clark Ashton Smith was a writer during the pulp era. He was considered an equal with H.P. Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith. That's the guy I'm talking about. And Robert E. Howard for Weird Tales, Strange Tales, and some of the magazines that they shared together. They were considered kind of the big three of the era. Robert E. Howard is still known and read today because of his Conan stuff and his other heroes. And H.P. Lovecraft is still well known and read today because of his horror stuff, specifically the Cthulhu mythos. But Clark Ashton Smith stuff, even though he was just as good of a writer, and to be some more talented, ends up not being as read as much today, which is a sad thing. Which is why I try to bring you some stories by him, including this clever idea, the Supernumerary Corpse. So what is the central key idea of this story? Well, our protagonist is going to open up, and he has developed a hatred, a loathing of somebody, and who is in his cadre, his circle of people. And he decides, after being, he's a chemist, and he works for this guy, and so it's his employer. His employer has abused him, he's stolen his names, his works as his own, and passes them off as his own. He doesn't give him the money that he gets from the chemist's great works that he's gotten out there. He's gotten lots and lots of money for. He touts them as his own. And he continues to develop them. So he's done a lot of research on and come up with this poison that will take out a man's senses for an hour without giving a sign of anything happening, and then after an hour the person will die. And then what the reason for that as his method of revenge is that he can give it to this guy, his employer. And then his employer will take it. And then over that hour, he can tell him why why he's dying, what's happening to him, what wound up happening, and that sort of thing, right? So we can have that sort of a thing and have that sort of final hour of pain and death to the person prior to that happening and the final moments passing of his employer. So he has created this poison that will do that. He manages to convince his employer that he's created an elixir that will help people live longer. And his employer drinks it because he's a selfish, greedy person. He's already talked about how he's going to, copyright it as his own names, drink an elixir, rather than the chemist who created it, in order to remove any credit whatsoever. So you can see the characterization of how our protagonist views him actually following it in place. These are not just fever dreams of a mad chemist. You're actually seeing it happen in real life. And then what happens? He dies. And then what happens? We'll follow along. That's about halfway through the story, so I'll go ahead and stop you there. Again, it's a short story. It took me 15 pages to read it the first time I read it a couple of days ago. And I do think that there is a clever idea in this story that I think is very interesting. Again, I think it's a little tried at times. I do think that there are some places where I think that Clark Ashton Smith could have done a better job writing with it. And I'm not the only one who feels this way. This story, unlike a lot of Clark Ashton Smith, was not put in a lot of his collections. It was left out of his best stuff. It was left out of his good stuff. It was left out of his short stories of the best horror stuff that he wrote. But I wanted to read it for you. I do think there's this valuable idea to it, and bring it to your attention. And I'll go ahead and leave you to it. Have you read the story? What did you think of it? Did you like it or dislike it? What did you think of my comments about it? Did you agree or disagree with anything that I talked about here in my video talking about the story by Clark Ashton Smith? Did you like this video? If so, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. There's going to be a whole lot more of these to follow. And finally, hey, I just want to thank you for taking some time out of your day and watching my video. We all have so many things happening in our lives, right? So the fact that you spent this time with me, it's incredibly humbling. And I really do appreciate it. So thanks again and have a great day.